if you can't handle the criticism, get out of coaching. It's just part of the business. But the one thing about the criticism, it's aimed at the position you hold, not you personally. You see, they'll try to make it personal, and you'll feel like it's personal. But the reality is, once you're not in that position anymore, they're throwing it at the next guy.
Welcome to the Up Your Average podcast, where Keith and Doug give no-nonsense advice to level up your life. So buckle up and listen closely to Up Your Average.
Mark, it is great to have you. Doug, I know you haven't spoke with Mark before, but when I think about the Shreve family, and I think of Caroline and her athletic prowess at Arkansas, I think you probably have a good vibe for the kind of athlete's lifestyle.
Yeah, we do. Mark, my wife played volleyball for Arkansas, the Razorbacks. Woo Pig Suey.
Yeah.
And she had a wonderful experience there and met a lot of really great people who helped her along the way to become the person that she is today. So I'm grateful for coaches. You might find this pretty interesting. Her high school volleyball coach, Steve Shondell, I believe he's the most winning volleyball coach in the history of high school sports. Just a fascinating person who focused on feet work and fundamentals. They would practice even without a volleyball. They wouldn't even have a volleyball, and they'd be practicing. And her little class of 32 kids were state champions, even up against the big schools. So it's pretty good stuff, Mark.
That's nice. Gotta love it.
Yes, gotta love it.
Mark, I had spoke with you a number of years ago about our mutual friend, Bob Warren.
Right.
And Bob was a big influence in my life years ago. And
me too, as you know.
Yeah, and I think what attracted me to you from conversations with Bob is Bob would say all the time, what you do isn't who you are,
right,
but who you are has a big influence on what you do.
Yeah.
And as a younger man, I was a really performance-driven dude, and that idea sounded really easy, but it sure was hard to tone down that driven personality.
Yeah. Well, and I don't necessarily think you got to change your personality so much as just know that you're a born-again believer in Jesus Christ who happens to do whatever you do.
Yeah, man.
And if you're still like I was more of a calm personality, that was just me, and I had other guys that, like Coach Bowden was like very gregarious, and I mean, he's the strongest believer I know, but his personality was totally different than mine when it came to how he would approach game day and everything else. But
and in that process, I think what really struck me is, as Doug and I are investment advisors, and you kind of live and die by the sword. Probably the best investors are right half the time, and that's probably not too far off from coaches. You're probably the best, or winning 60% or so.
Oh yeah, you get in the Hall of Fame if you're like 65 or something.
Yeah. And so if you're used to being an A student and getting 90%, finding yourself in a career that is 65 if you're the best, or 50, that's a whole different mind shift.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt.
And so I think the thing that struck me was, as you were coaching SEC football, and SEC football was the kind of the top of the rung at that point in time when I spoke with you, the question that I had for you was, how do you take what you do and then have an unsuccessful week and go back to life without it disrupting your apple cart? That was kind of the question that kind of started my conversation with you.
Right. I don't remember what I said, but we just let it rip whenever you want.
Well, you had said something to me along the lines of uh, the responsibility or that loss is on the role. It's not on me. And that really, that was just a really profound statement to me.
Yeah, well, in that regard, Coach Bowden used to tell us, if you can't handle the criticism, get out of coaching. It's just part of the business. He said, but the one thing about the criticism, it's aimed at the position you hold, not you personally. He said they'll try to make it personal, and you'll feel like it's personal. But the reality is, once you're not in that position anymore, they're throwing it at the next guy, and they kind of like even right now, me as a retired coach in Athens, Georgia. Nobody says I'm stupid anymore. No one says I don't know what I'm doing anymore. They all think I'm an awesome guy, but I'm not in the position anymore.
How do you help that sounds easy with a certain level of maturity and experience. How would you help a 25-year-old figure that out?
Right. Well, I think I'd said the very thing Coach Bowden said about criticism, and just trying to understand, that, if you're the head basketball coach, like, Pat Kennedy during the time I was coaching at Florida State, I might be driving home or driving to work or whatever, and be listening to the Pat Kennedy show. And, you get all the callers to call in and say, all the dumb things he did. Why'd you do this? Why'd you do that? And you knew Pat was a great coach and a great guy and all that kind of thing. And you hear somebody else catching it, you don't feel like the Lone Ranger. But, the bottom line is, just like right now, Mike Bubble calls plays at Georgia. And so he's the guy. He's the guy who catches all the crap. And but when he's not in that position, he didn't catch it. It's just the way it is. But you just gotta know it's coming and be able to focus on your job and do. The bottom line is you're making decisions all the time. You got to decide what is your when you make a decision, who are you trying to please? You're trying to please the fans. You're trying to please the AD, trying to please the player or the player's parents or your assistant coaches, or you got to decide what you're going to do. And for me, it was like I felt like if I made a decision that God was pleased with, then let's go. Let's let it rip. And regardless of what everybody else thinks about it, because no matter what you say, somebody in that group is not going to be happy. It's just the way it is.
Yeah, that's a really good word. As a young businessman kind of kicking the tires, trying to figure things out, I concluded that the person who could make the most decisions in the shortest amount of time with the greatest accuracy will make the most money. And that seemed like a big deal at that point in time. But I realized that a lot of people just don't want the responsibility of a decision.
Leadership's not easy. And leadership, it'll eat your lunch. It'll eat you up. It'll slowly, take your health. It'll slowly take your mental health, because of the constant pressure of having to make decisions and the consequences of those decisions fall on your responsibility. So it can wear you out, over time for sure.
And it sounds like Coach Bowden really influenced you in that kind of direction of your life to help you to be better at making decisions.
Yeah, there's no doubt. I mean, of all the coaches I've ever been around, and thank goodness he was the first guy I worked under, he truly had his priorities in order. I mean, it was truly faith, number one. It was truly family, number two. It was truly football, number three. And a lot of coaches preach that, but not many live it out like he did. And so again, his goal was to, make a decision that was pleasing to God, not necessarily making somebody happy, because he knew he couldn't make everybody happy. So that's kind of what he based his decision on. And when you live your life that way and you prepare your heart and your spirit for that relationship with God, with Jesus, and those situations come up and you have to make a decision. Sometimes you have time to pray about it and get peace about it and then do it. And sometimes you got to make that decision right now. And the closer you are to God in your walk, the greater chance you have of making a decision that he would be in alignment with, that he would be pleased with.
That I guess coaching is probably, when I think about it, the place where the decisions are just quick and coming at you. It's not like life decisions, but it's what are we going to do in this instance in a game?
Yeah, during a game, obviously, if you're calling plays, every 25 seconds you got to spew something out, and you got to have something ready to go that quick. And there's other things in games or even in life that you have more time to contemplate and think about and pray and meditate. Like I said, try to get some peace about a direction that you want to go. But sometimes in life, you got to make the call like right away. Matter of fact, when I said make the call, I wrote a book and the name of the book was Make the Call. And it talked about a lot about making decisions that are split second and some that you've got time to really pray it through and think it through.
One of the things that has been for me, like how I've managed time, is by roles. And even as Gimbal Financial, as our business, really, it sounds like what you said about Coach Bowden. I'm looking at our mission statement. It just said, for our business, we desire to radiate God with every action and decision we make, to benefit our families, our employees, our clients, and our business associates. And so when we put our clients third in that priority list, there were some people that were offended by that.
Sure.
But I don't see how you can really be effective in anything if you don't put those other priorities in place.
Yeah, no doubt. We had a relatively small mission statement that I took with me to Georgia. And but the last line, besides all the, do your responsibility with excellence and all that kind of stuff, at the very end it said honor God with what you do. And I would tell the staff, we really don't need the first part of this mission statement. We just need to read the last line, which says, try to honor God with everything we do. If you do that, you're going to give your best, and you're going to do what's best for the company too.
Yeah, I found these things very challenging in corporate America because the mission statements a lot of time would trump the priorities of life.
Yeah.
And as we were developing our mission statement, what I had discovered in the late 90s was that corporate America had kind of made growth their God. Instead of just being profitable, they want growth of profit. So we finished our mission statement with the sentence that we'll view growth of our business as a result of God's provision, which sounds passive, I think, to people. It's like you're not going to go out and grind it out. But at the same time, I found that grinding it out didn't always create results either.
There's no doubt, and really when you come to mission statements, a lot of times, if you ask half your employees what's the mission statement, they're not going to be able to quote it for you. It's something that, sometimes it's ingrained and sometimes it's not. But I think the leader has to believe in the mission statement and he has to live it out on a daily basis. And if he does that or she does that, then that gives the greatest chance of everybody around you, everybody's looking to you for leadership, to buy into it as well. But you can spend a lot of time on a mission statement and make a nice plaque and put it in everybody's office and all that good stuff. But how many people, it might be sitting right behind them on their desk on the wall, and they couldn't quote it to you if they tried it in most places.
This may be the only time I've talked about it publicly in a decade. I don't even know. I saw the parallels with what you're expressing and what drives us to our days. What I'm wondering, and I see, I've spent I think from Bob's influence, a good amount of my time one-on-one mentoring young men, and I see an epidemic of a lack of confidence out there amongst young men these days. And I can see some parallels from what you're saying about criticism and increasing your confidence level. I'm just wondering how you help these young men that maybe grew up that every kid's a winner and they didn't get the Bob Knight approach of
Well,
training or things like that.
yeah, I was just going to bring that up. I mean, if they stop giving a trophy to everybody, and don't keep score, how are they going to learn to handle when they don't succeed, when they're young? Everything is like, great job, Johnny. Great job, Jill. Oh, that was beautiful. That was perfect. And you play these T-ball games and nobody wins, nobody loses. Or we're even going into Little League and beyond sometimes, it's like, let's go ahead and do some real world competition, and whoever wins wins, and whoever loses has to live with it and maybe work harder the next time and can overcome some negativity. But when the path is paved too smoothly for our young people, then when they grow into real life situations, they have a hard time handling it. But I think the big thing is, you gotta, give them responsibility, count on them to do it. If they make a mistake or they fail, then you help correct them and set them back on the right track. And then when they succeed because of doing things right, instead of somebody just trying to say, "Great job," then they know on the inside that they're improving, and they gain confidence as they go.
What do you see with, like, during your coaching days? I assume the kids that were stepping on the field with you that were often the best player on their team before they got to
Right.
you. How did they navigate that process
Tough.
in general?
Toughest thing mentally, that's the toughest thing for those players was exactly what you said: being the best in their city, being the best on their team, uh, just because they were the physically gifted. Not sometimes not necessarily a great work ethic that went with it. They just were, and uh, and they were used to that. And then all of a sudden, they go onto a campus where every single guy on that team just about was that guy. And now you guess what? You got to compete for your playing time. You got to compete, for your ability to do all the things that you dreamed of doing. And a lot of guys just flat out have not had to compete, and so that's a shock to their system. And that's one of the greatest fears coming in for most of them. They're like, man, how am I going to fit in? Can I play here? Do I belong here? And again, that's where you got to, give them basically an assignment, so to speak, as far as the things that they need to do, a checklist, the things that they need to do in the weight room and in the classroom and in the meeting room to have success, to show them older players, more experienced players, and kind of point them to a relationship with an older guy. I mean, we used to have what we called brother's keeper. We had the juniors connect with the freshmen and the seniors connect with the sophomores. And so the young players could have a mentor to kind of help show them the way and help them kind of be responsible for those guys to make it and keep an eye on them and make sure they're doing the things they need to do to continue to create the culture of the team, but also, improve to the point where they gain the confidence to compete at that level. So they definitely, I mean, there's some that show up and they're still freaky, the freak of the freaks. There's very few guys like that just show up in college and they're better than everybody there. Maybe 5% of the population at best, but the rest of them gotta earn it.
I played high school sports against Donnie Mattingly, so I got dominated all the time.
Exactly.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. Well, let me put it. Let me see if I can get you to help. Let's say we've got a 30-year-old young man. Let's say he played college sports. He did well in that avenue, but now he's in the business world and he's finding out he's ordinary. Kind of like what you're saying on the sporting field. What would you do to encourage that 30-year-old man? He's doubting himself. His confidence is waning. Maybe the business world isn't. They're not giving him a trophy. They're slapping him around. How would you encourage him to start putting one foot in front of the other to gain confidence in spite of maybe not his great success?
Right. Well, first of all, he's not ordinary. He may be performing in an ordinary way, but who knows what his potential may be. So, and if he's an athlete, okay, he's been coached, he's been taught, he's been corrected. I mean, in football, we film every single practice, every single play, and then we go after practice that evening. The coaches look at it and grade that film. Every single player gets a grade on how he performed in practice. And the next day in the segment meetings, the player meetings, that position coach watches that film with that kid and he shows him the things he did well and the things he didn't do well, or a teammate doing it right, or a teammate making a mistake. So there's a lot of feedback that can say, hey, this would have been a better way, or we can't do it this way, we need to do it this way. And so, if you have that kind of communication, where it's not like you're picking on one guy, but everybody's getting coached, everybody's getting taught, everybody's getting corrected, everybody's looking at it, then everybody understands that's just the way we do things here. But why are we doing it? To make you feel bad? To make you feel inferior? No. It's to help you grow and help you get better and even learn. You can learn from, your teammates' mistake possibly, or your teammate's success. It's just like we had a kid, people would know the name, obviously, David Pollock. I mean, David Pollock showed up and that kid just started working. He outworked everybody. He was literally the hardest working guy on the team as a true freshman. And in the beginning, he was kind of a pain in the rear to the older guys, and kind of making people look bad. But in the end, when they started to see the type of success he had because of his work ethic, everybody said, well, maybe I need to work that hard too. And so you never know who you might learn from. It might be a rookie, might be a new employee, or it might be an older sage with the gray hair,
Hey, Coach, what did your dad do for a living?
My dad was a computer programmer at IBM. He started out as a tool and die maker, which I have no idea what that is. He worked at a place called Western Electric, and then as a tool and die maker, and then he went to IBM to be a tool and die maker. And then when the PCs first started coming out, they needed computer programmers but didn't have enough. So he took an aptitude test at IBM, scored high enough to be a guy they wanted to train, be a computer programmer, and that's what he did for the last probably 15, 20 years of his time at IBM.
Did he teach you anything about leadership?
Yeah, he did. He taught me to show up every day, do your job, be honest. People called him honest Lou. I mean, my dad's name was Lou, and he was definitely the most honest man I've ever met. A guy that people trusted explicitly, and a guy that was a quiet personality, but a guy had, a wife and 5 kids and showed up to work every day to provide for us. And so he taught me a steady work ethic and how important it is to have pursue integrity in your life and in your career. And he said that with actions more than words,
Wonder what it was like for him to see your team losing.
I would never know. He would never say a peep. Um, and if he really thought something, he'd probably keep it to himself.
Hmm.
But he was just a quiet, humble man. I know he enjoyed uh, coming to the games and getting a chance to watch me do my thing, but he never, well, and he knew baseball, but he didn't know football. And so he wasn't going to try to act like he knew what was up. Like some fans, are critical who really don't know what they're talking about. In the coaching business, we say they don't know that they don't know. And it's not trying to be mean, but there's a lot of fans that really don't know what's going on in the staff room. They don't know what we studied for hours in film, what the game plan was, why we decided to do this. I mean, I always felt like you could take a fan and put him in our staff room and let him see exactly what we do and why we do it. Then go to the fast forward to the game and say, what play should we call the first time we get it on the 5-yard line going in? Well, he's going to say, we need to call this play because that's what we all decided on because of watching film. That's what we practiced. The defense is what their defense does the highest percentage of the time. So this is the call. So yeah, well, let's call it. Well, if it works, you're a genius. If it doesn't work, you're an idiot. So when the bottom line is, a lot of fans truly don't know that they don't know what they're talking about sometimes. And that's another reason why you shouldn't get your feelings hurt if somebody's criticizing you.
From a fan or a fanatic point of view, I can see that. Was there ever a media person that you really clicked with?
Oh, there's a lot of them. I understood the media had a job to do, and they'd have to ask certain questions or go certain places. The only thing that I really had to kind of put my foot down on was the harsh criticism of a player or players. Even if sometimes it's one thing to say, hey, he stunk it up that day, but if they're getting personal with these kids, sometimes I'm like, once again, you really don't know. Um, so I get every so often I get hot with somebody because of that, but for the most part, I would say 95% of the people in the media I dealt with, I have a good relationship today.
Last night, I was watching our 13-year-old at a wrestling match, and I don't know much about wrestling, but I was watching him, and it went several rounds.
Right.
And I kept wondering, this thought is, what does God care about my son wrestling right now?
Right.
Well, how would
Well,
you answer that?
I would say he likes to struggle. I have a lot of respect for wrestlers. My brother Craig, my younger brother Craig was a wrestler, and I watched him prepare, and I watched him get in the mat and compete. And guess what? You're the only one in there, man, as
Right.
far as human beings are concerned. And so you're in there, and you are battling. I mean, the reason why those rounds are only 3 minutes because you can't go much longer than 3 minutes. It's with that exerting that kind of energy and using that much of your strength and your will, But the bottom line is, in life, we're gonna have a tough times. We're gonna struggle. But the one thing about being in the ring, you're there by yourself physically, but spiritually, God's in the ring with you. And I think that asking God for strength and asking God for health and asking God for the ability to finish, so to speak. I think God loves that when we calling him when we're struggling.
Thank you.
Mark, I saw sometime in the last probably 15 years a couple things that really impressed me with you. And one of them, probably 15 years ago, I don't know when, we were on the phone and you were on your way to the office and you were getting some Chick-fil-A or something for breakfast. And
very good chance it was Chick-fil-A.
yeah, I was very impressed. The enthusiasm of the drive, I think it was drive-through, the workers. And
Yeah.
one of the things that I believe is you can tell a lot about the character of a person by the way they treat somebody who really can't do anything for them. And I was just like eavesdropping on that situation. It was just really an encouragement to my soul to listen to your respect for those people at the Chick-fil-A.
Yeah, well, how hard is it to be respectful? How hard is it to be kind to somebody? How hard is it to say, you know what? I appreciate the fact that you're working, first of all, and the fact that you're doing a good job, to people. I mean, people in your office like raises, okay? People like bonuses, but they also like to know you have some positive feedback when you do something good, and make a point of it. And we, like, even on our football team, every well, not Sunday, but every Monday after a ball game, we had a team meeting, and we gave out props for all kind of different categories that guys did well. And when you not only pat somebody on the back because they did something well, but you do it in front of their peers, it's even more meaningful to them.
Yeah, that really encouraged me. I've, by being around successful people over my lifetime, and that ability to not let success get in the way of your humility that's just a rock star move there.
Well, the other thing is, the community service that we would do as a team. For the point you were making earlier, I wanted the guys to be able to help somebody who can't help them back, whether it's Habitat for Humanity or whether it's going to the food bank or whatever it is. We even went on a mission trip or two for the guys that wanted to go. And so in the summertime, in the springtime, every single guy on the team had to do some kind of community service so he could feel what you were talking about, feel what it's like to help somebody without them helping you. And most of these guys show up with thinking the world revolves around them a little bit. And then, so they don't think much of others at times, but you give them a chance to really jump in there and help somebody and see what that does to their life or their day. If you can make somebody's day, that feels good. Feels good to them, but it feels good to you too. So we always try to give them a taste of that.
So here's the second one, and I don't have a reference. I can't tell you where I saw it, but some point, and I found this to be a greater value than if somebody told me they were in the Hall of Fame. But some article I read in the last decade or so, it was a poll of college football coaches and who they would want to coach their own sons. And unanimously, you were the guy. I don't know if you saw that article or what, but to me, that spoke volumes.
Yeah, it might have been one of those preseason magazines or something like that. But somehow they had a poll of, I don't know if it's Division I coaches or what, but it feels good because you want to feel like you're not only highly competitive, you're not only a guy that can win at a great level and bring players in and develop them as players and as people for them to continue their dream of playing ball in the NFL. And if they're not cut out for that, they're ready for other things in life. So you feel like if you get your peers to say, that's the guy I'd have my son play for, you feel like you might be doing something right.
I'm fortunate. A year ago, my son joined our team here, and I get to stare at him across the desk here. And I would have been very selfish at who I wanted him to perform for. So that
how does he address you,
Dad?
Okay, yeah, because my son coached for me a couple years at Miami, and he didn't call me Coach Richt. He called me Pops. Yeah. So
yeah,
not many assistant coaches have that luxury.
Yeah, that's very cool. Well, we've sure taken a good amount of your time. Is there anything else, if you think about those young men that are lacking confidence as we bring this to close, any other trade tips you could offer to them this afternoon?
Yeah. By the grace of God, one popped in my brain right now. And it came from my wife. And so I might come home and say, this guy's not getting it, blah, blah, blah. And she'd be like, she said, let me make sure I get this right. She said, does he know you believe in him?
Wow.
And I said, he hadn't done anything for me to believe in, honey. She said, that's not how it works. She said, first you believe in them, and then they grow into your expectations for them. And that was probably the top two thing I learned from my wife in this coaching business. That was like monumental in the way I thought.
Sounds like you married up well.
You know what the other one was?
No.
I was at Florida State, and we had Charlie Ward as our starting quarterback. In our traditional offense, he really wasn't doing very well, quite frankly. But when we got in trouble and got into our 2-minute offense, the no huddle spread 2-minute offense, he thrived. Every time we got a 2-minute drill, bang, 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 down the field, touchdown, came back and won the game. She said, hey, honey, Charlie seems to do pretty good at the end of the game in the 2-minute drill. She goes, why don't you start the game in it? And I was like, it's not a bad idea. So the next game we played Maryland. We started the game with the 2-minute drill, basically, the no huddle, fast break. And we had like 850 yards of offense. And I mean, we scored, I think we had 10 drives and 10 touchdowns, and it was crazy. But it's amazing what'll happen if you listen to your wife.
That is a good word. Well, it's been an honor to hang out, and you're welcome on our podcast anytime. In the meantime, I hope you have a great weekend.